On this week's episode, we've got a new calendar, some potential new tracks, and a look ahead to the Austrian Grand Prix. Hello, welcome to Back of the Grid. I'm Chris, joined as ever by Tom.
Hello.
On a pretty warm evening here.
Yeah, it's one of those, isn't it? We're in the 20s, so we're going to complain about the heat.
Yes,
we're
the
British.
entire UK is melting, yeah. We may have a special guest appearance from a seagull outside my window at some point. So apologies in advance.
Mine.
Couple of newsy bits over the last week or so to get through before we talk about Austria. First up, the 2026 calendar has been released, which is largely exactly the same as this year in the same order, but a couple of pretty significant changes. First of all, Imola, as expected, has dropped off the calendar.
Sad.
It is and it isn't. Like, it's always sad losing one of these classic tracks, but I also feel like F1 has kind of outgrown Imola these days.
Yeah, but I wanted to go, Chris.
Yeah,
I know I've had like 3 years of opportunity to do that. I've just not been able to make it work, so I'm just a bit sad.
Maybe once the cars are a bit smaller in a few years' time, I can go back again.
Maybe.
We've also got Madrid on the calendar, which officially now is the Spanish Grand Prix. Obviously, subject to the circuit being finished and homologated. That is being moved from the current Spanish Grand Prix slot of June back to September, which I guess is to give them a few more months to get the circuit built. I did enjoy that in the week, Istanbul Park have just casually gone, oh, we're here, we're ready. If it's not ready in time, we'll have a race.
Yeah. I mean, they are traditionally known for stepping in quite last minute and providing races, so
they really are. Catalonia does stay on the calendar. It's kind of an as yet unnamed race. It's probably going to be called something like the Barcelona Catalonia Grand Prix.
Yeah, the Catalan Grand Prix wouldn't be a bad shout, to be fair, especially for the people of that region. I guess at least they get a last hurrah with it under a name that they probably feel a bit more represented by than Spanish Grand Prix.
Yeah, because am I right in saying they played 2 anthems before the race there?
Oh, good question. I've never paid that much attention.
I have a feeling they played the Spanish anthem and the Catalan anthem.
Well,
I'm sure Discord or a listener will correct me on this, but
I mean, I've been there and I haven't noticed. So I just know that there's obviously a big difference between being Spanish and being Catalan. So
yeah, I definitely know you see the Catalan flag flying there, but I have a feeling they play the anthem as well. But that's staying roughly in the same spot on the calendar as well.
Yeah, we sort of, I wouldn't say we badly reported this the other week when we were first talking about it, but we sort of missed the fact that that Catalonia was staying for at least one more year because there was a year left on the contract. So it was unlikely that it would be completely gone from 2026. But that is, like, next season is the last year on their contract, and there's no real talk of renewing it as of yet for 2027. I mean, that might change in the next 12 months, but it's not. It wasn't there for the long haul, which is, I guess, what we were kind of talking about a couple of weeks ago. But I did notice that we ended up with 1 or 2 comments or messages that just sort of said, just a reminder, it has got a contract for 2026, which we glossed over a little bit. But the point was more, it's looking like it's gone long term, I guess.
I think the best they can probably hope for is a kind of rotation spot alongside sort of Spa and maybe Zandvoort, maybe one of the German circuits, which would be cool. Like, I'd just like to see that kind of rotation thing. We've talked about that in the past.
Yeah, that's our favourite option right now, I think, isn't it? Is keep that traditional European Grand Prix name, get that back on the calendar, and have it so that 3 or 4, 5 circuits, whatever, rotate over a few years. But yeah, we'll have to see.
Then we get on to the Canadian Grand Prix. So with Imola dropping off, they've shuffled things around a little bit. And the Canadian Grand Prix is now going to be moving before Monaco and Spain, where it's traditionally been afterwards, which is significant for a few reasons. It means we're losing out on what a lot of people consider one of the best days in motorsport, because for a number of years now, it's been the Monaco Grand Prix, the Indy 500, and the Daytona 500 all on the same day. But Canada is now taking that end of May slot that traditionally has been the Monaco slot, and Monaco is moving to the first week of June, which is a shame to not have Monaco and the Indy 500 on the same day, because that's just feels right, doesn't it?
However, it means the single season Triple Crown is back on.
That's true, yes.
unless Le Mans clashes with it. But I don't think there's a WEC calendar for next year yet, is there?
There is, because it's exactly the same races, but I don't know of these.
Oh yeah, literally Googling WEC 2026 calendar. The answer is the calendar will consist of 8 races, mirroring the 2025 schedule.
Yeah. Also, Discord just corrected me. It's not the Daytona 500. It's the Coca-Cola 600, which is at Charlotte. NASCAR, bit of a blind spot for me.
What date was Monaco?
New Monaco date is the 7th of June.
It's doable. Le Mans is the 13th and 14th.
So someone could do Monaco and the Indy 500 and Le Mans, Triple Crown, single season.
Do you know what? Even if you had I want to say the balls to do it, if you had the balls to just enter all 3 of them in this day and age, I would have huge kudos for you.
Yeah.
As a driver. This feels like something that Alonso will do as a last hurrah or something.
I mean, we've had Kyle Lawson the last couple of years trying to do the Indy 500 and Coke 600 back to back on the same day. But yeah, doing all 3 on consecutive weekends. There's about 7 drivers at the moment who did Le Mans previous weekend, Nürburgring 24 the weekend just gone, and then they're also doing the Spa 24 next weekend. 3 24-hour races on consecutive weekends, which is insanity.
Yeah, that's impressive as well.
Yeah. But yeah, so now we've got the Canadian Grand Prix on the same day as the Indy 500 rather than the Monaco Grand Prix. But of course, they're both in the same time zone, so they are going to clash now, which is such a strange piece of scheduling.
Yes, Chris, but that is a Canadian race, not an American race, so who cares?
It's just like F1 have been doing so much to push Formula One in the States in the last few years and done a very good job of it and made some real footholds. And then they just go and stick one of their races up against the biggest race in North America.
Yeah.
Like, do they really expect people to watch it? Like, I'm already thinking I'm going to have like a 2-screen experience to watch 2 races.
Are they going to end up being the same time?
Almost certainly.
Yeah.
Based on the times they've run in previous years, almost certainly.
Yeah, I mean, it's always helped it be Monaco, hasn't it? Because it's a Sunday afternoon, which then transitions to a Sunday afternoon. Yeah,
you get a couple of hours between them.
Yeah.
This, of course, is if the Canadian Grand Prix even happens, because Montreal in May, ridiculously cold temperatures and even snow is not unheard of. Like, it's very early in the year to be having a race in that part of the world.
Yeah, I think May did hopefully get away with from what I've seen.
Yeah,
if they'd gone any earlier, I think if they'd gone any earlier, they would be really struggling. But yeah, from what I've seen, May's, I guess, like 50-50. But even still,
gambling a little bit.
That is gambling, yeah.
We just remember there was those few years where they decided to move the British Grand Prix to like April, and it was just like 2 or 3 years of torrential rain non-stop.
Yep.
Speaking of Montreal, they've also had a contract extension all the way to 2035, which...
Providing they're willing to compete with the Indy 500 every year.
Yeah, because one of my concerns with moving this was that they're kind of eyeing up getting rid of that race on the calendar, and putting it up against something that's going to kill the viewing figures will give them another excuse to get rid of it. But apparently not. Another 10-year extension for them.
This is part of a deal of some kind of, look, we need to do some moving around. You're going to have a year or two up against the Indy 500. Yeah. However, here's a nice 10-year contract to compensate for that. I don't know. Maybe that's part of it, that hopefully it's not a permanent thing, because I know I'd like to watch them both, and I'd like to watch them both live if I was going to watch them both. So, yeah.
But yeah, Montreal until 2035, I'm pretty happy with that. It's one of my favourite tracks on the calendar, even if it doesn't always produce the best races. Generally an enjoyable track, I think.
Yeah.
But other than that, everything is more or less the same as it is this year. Comparable dates, starting in Australia again, which, as we've said before, just feels right. And then, running all the way to the 6th of December, the final race next year in Abu Dhabi.
Crazy seasons now.
Yeah. Like, growing up with like 15, 16 race seasons, and then when it got up to like 18, it was like, "Ooh, this is a lot. This is a lot to keep track of."
It just seems weird to be going all the way to December these days. I know we've done it for a long while now, but even still, I can remember, like, March, yes, has always been traditionally roughly when the season starts, at least in our time. But, like, the season was done by, like, what, September, maybe October? Yeah. Like, October was when it was starting to get into being a long calendar. Now we're going into November and even December. It's crazy.
Yeah, wild. We've also got some potential new locations for F1 on the horizon. One of them being Thailand. There's been sort of talk of a Thai Grand Prix for a little while. Stefano Domenicali has been sort of in discussions with them for a little while now. But the Thai government have just approved a $1.2 billion bid to host a Grand Prix in Bangkok. It sounds like they want to have a city street circuit in Bangkok, targeting 2028 as the first one of those. No sort of potential circuit layouts or anything like that yet, as far as I've seen. But things seem to be moving there. Another street circuit, just what everybody wants.
I mean, that bit of it's not left for. Well, that little bit of it is not something that interests me. However, more races in that part of the world, I don't think is necessarily a bad thing. Especially when you've got like Alex on the grid as well, Alex Albon. Doing his part to fly a flag for the Thai people and be some representation for that culture from his ties to there through his mum, and that side of his family. So I think, there's definitely some positives about that for sure. However, when we're getting rid of like actual racetracks for city tracks in Madrid and so on, and like moving good traditional track, well, I say traditional, it's been on a long time, but good tracks like Canada to compete against, like you said, the biggest race in North America, pretty much, if not the biggest, and we're doing that, like it takes the shine off. Good news, I guess, but I'd be happy to see us go to Thailand, that's for sure.
Yeah, it'd be cool. Also, Kyle Army is sort of a step closer to having F1 return to South Africa. They submitted their plans for upgrading the circuit to Grade 1 status to the FIA, which have been approved now. It's not actually any changes to the circuit, but it's improvements to things like runoff areas, gravel traps, fences, even things like drainage, like comes under Grade 1 certification. But it's all been approved by the FIA now, so they've said if their bid to host race is approved, then they will commence work on it. There is also, I think there's a couple of proposals for street tracks in Cape Town as well. So I think there's kind of an internal fight over which will be the official bid from South Africa to host a race. But yeah, it's looking like we're getting closer and closer to having a race in South Africa, and it's only got to be a good thing. Like at a basic level, if you're having a world championship, you should represent every bit of the world, and not having a
Yeah.
race in Africa is a pretty big empty spot for F1.
Yeah, would definitely like to see something like this back on the calendar. However, I would have a lot more time for Kyalami as a circuit than I would Cape Town as a street track.
Yeah,
I mean, there's some good history to Kyalami as well, with the fact that, what was it? It was, I don't know, about 20, 30 years of racing there, like, what, mid-60s to mid-90s or something? I mean, on and off, I don't think it was consistent, but it's in that ballpark, isn't it? There's like a long time of Grand Prix racing there. So,
yeah.
yeah, it would be good to go back there if we could.
It's not really a circuit I know all that well. Actually, I've never really driven it much on Sims, so I'm not entirely familiar with it. But I mean, looking at track maps, it looks pretty cool. Like I can see potential areas for F1 to race there.
Yeah, I mean, it's a cool circuit that's got like history to it, I guess is probably the best way of putting it. But it has also changed a lot over that time. Like,
Massively, yeah.
there's not, from the original days, I don't think there's much of that original circuit left, to be brutally honest with you, with the way it's structured now. But it's still a cool circuit. There's a lot of, I think there's a decent amount of opportunity for like overtaking and interesting racing. But I'd be interested to see like how an F1 car goes there for sure.
Yeah. I might even load it up on a sim later on and do a few laps and see how it is.
Do it.
The joys of sim racing. But yeah, no sort of timeline on that at the moment. But yeah, definitely things are moving pretty fast. It definitely seems like the Cape Town stuff was getting all the headlines for a while, but it definitely feels like momentum's back with Kyle Army at the moment. So
Yeah.
hopefully that's where they end up. And there's last bit of news this week. James Vowles has signed a new deal at Williams. Not many details. They just said a multi-year deal for him to stay as team principal, which I think is just a very sensible, very obvious choice, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, makes sense based on the not rapid improvement, but it's good enough. It's a good enough pace. Like, I'm sure everyone invested within Williams is happy to be seeing it moving along at the pace that it is. So yeah, as the let's call it an edge fan, like, I'm not a diehard Williams fan or anything like that, but it's a team I like to see doing well, just because of the history and the, what it means to sort of still be seeing that privateer type of team, and obviously it's not anymore, but he's still got a little bit of that essence to it, I think, in some degree, despite the change in ownership and everything. So yeah, to see them doing well is always nice. So I think, yeah, simple decision, isn't it, really, to make James Vowles part of that when he's been a key part of getting them to where they are now.
Yeah, I think like the sort of slightly cynical view when he first went there was that Mercedes was sending him there to get a bit of team principal experience for a few years, so
Yeah.
Toto could retire or move to something else and that have him back. But it very much feels like he's kind of committing his future there now, so it's good to see.
I agree. This week's episode of Back of the Grid is brought to you by SeatFrog. SeatFrog is a super simple way to upgrade and adapt your train travel by providing a way to bid on first class upgrades and swap pre-booked tickets if your plans change. You can join over 1.5 million people who've already saved money on train journeys today and get an additional £3 off your next booking with the code GridFrog at checkout. You can even buy discounted tickets outright through SeatFrog without having any added booking fees, so download the app today and start saving. And don't forget, use that code GridFrog for an extra £3 off your first purchase.
Right, should we have a little talk about Austria?
Yeah, let's look ahead to the Red Bull Ring.
Yes. Speaking of Red Bull's home race, generally a race they go well at. Do we think we'll see them back at the front after
I
a
feel
couple
like
of races where they haven't been?
I don't know. I don't feel like the car's there at the minute. I mean, it's not really been properly there all season, has it?
Mm.
But I don't think it's there overall. I think you're more likely to see McLaren continuing form, and then your likes of Mercedes probably being closest to them would be my guess. I suppose it depends on temperatures. Like
Yeah.
it's higher altitude, so it's probably going to be cooler. But if it's clear and um, you know clear and sunny, it's going to get hot. So might not swing so much in their favour in that regard. But yeah, I mean, in the last couple of years, it has generally been Red Bull, but it's. I mean, where was Max last year? Max wasn't even on the podium last season, was he? For the Austrian Grand Prix, I'm trying to think
Um,
what happened. 'Cause he was on
oh,
pole.
yeah, no, him and
Oh,
Lando
it
had
was him and
a
Lando, wasn't it? That was last
disagreement.
year. Yeah,
Yes.
that was last year. Um,
So he was in
so
the fight for the win, but
yeah, I mean, yeah, I suppose there is that.
it's
I mean, it does also feel like one of those circuits, though, where if Max is going to get a result that is beyond the car, this is probably one of those places he's going to
yeah.
do it, realistically.
It's looking like it's going to be unusually hot there this
Is
weekend.
it?
So maybe that's going to swing it back in McLaren's favour, given their
Mm,
ability to maintain tyre temperature this season.
yeah.
And speaking of McLaren, how do we think Norris is going to bounce back after Canada?
Um, I think it's going to be hard to tell until you see his demeanour going into the weekend. Probably helps that it's not been a back-to-back weekend. It's
I was
given
about to
him a
say,
weekend off to just reflect on it and stuff like that, and essentially get over it as best he can. Like, I mean, the good thing is that at least from what you've seen, generally speaking, the team and Oscar, like, there's no like hard feelings or bad blood or anything like that. But I mean, at the end of the day, Norris ended up ruining nothing but his own race, which maybe helps. Had that gone worse for Oscar and the team overall, there might have been a little bit more of a kind of blowout from that internally within McLaren. But I think managing to avoid that and things staying pretty collected within the team will at least help him bounce back. And it's a shame because, like I said last week when we talked about it on the review, he had moments in that race where you were seeing the true pace and the competitiveness and the wanting to win the position, and then threw it all away in that moment.
yeah,
So just showing that, like, those glimmers of immaturity is probably the word for it, or desperation. Um, but maybe that is a learning point. Maybe this is a changing point for him. Like,
yeah,
I know he gets very vocal and in his own head about you can't race Verstappen because Verstappen doesn't want to race you. But he knows full well that Oscar's not like that, and Oscar doesn't drive like that. So
yeah.
maybe this will help be a reset for him, and he can come back really strong in Austria, just on the basis that, like, he knows that was his fault. He knows that was his mistake, and maybe just makes him reanalyze some of the other stuff that's gone on in the past, and just has a bit of a reset, hopefully.
It's almost like it's probably for the best that it wasn't a contentious collision. It was very clearly his fault. He admitted it was his fault. There's not going to be some weird cloud hanging over. He's not going to have the whole media asking him about his war with Piastri and stuff.
Yeah,
Obviously, the media are going to ask him loads about the incident that they did have, but it's an easier when it's on you. You made a mistake. I think that's an easier thing to just compartmentalize, move on, and yeah. And as you say, I think having a bit of a gap as well is probably really good for him.
yeah.
Um, what about Mercedes? Really impressive last weekend. Probably not a track that's going to suit their car as much, especially if it's going to be really high temperatures this weekend. Um, a few sort of medium and fast speed corners here, which tends to be a bit more of their Achilles heel, I think.
Yeah, I mean they've had all right races here over the years. I know it's always traditionally been a bit of a Red Bull track, but I mean Bottas has won here before. George picked up the pieces
Mm,
after
that's
the
true.
Norris and Verstappen thing last year. So I don't think they go badly here. I think it's just that they've never gone as well as the Red Bull, and the Red Bull's
Yeah.
not that great this year in comparison. So, however, having said that, the thing you've mentioned before about temperatures, if it's looking like a little bit of an unconventional heat wave for that region, then that's probably going to pin Mercedes back a little bit because they do definitely perform better in the colder temperatures and those scenarios. Like that's quite traditionally been their thing, which is why I say like Canada suited them as well as it did because it's
Yeah.
generally is much cooler. So I think that is going to be the big factor for them as to whether they stay in this or not. And I think outside of that, it's maybe a fight between Max and the McLarens. But happy to be proven wrong, as he says in his. I'm wearing them. I'm wearing them at the hat today, so
Oh no.
that's ruining that one. Antonelli's probably going to end up in the gravel somewhere or something.
Mercedes are going to be rubbing their hands together at the prospect of Canada in May, actually, aren't they?
Yeah,
Colder the better, as far
snow,
as they're concerned.
snow chains and stick Bottas in the
Yeah.
car. Job done.
We've obviously also got the threat of a race ban hanging over Verstappen still. I mean, I think he wasn't really in many wheel-to-wheel fights last time out, but I think he did kind of prove that as angry as he got about being asked about it all the time in the lead up to the race, when it came down to it, he just kept his nose clean. Like there was,
Yeah,
he's obviously got previous of picking up penalty points here. In fact, he's picked up 2 penalty points here last year, which expire after this race. But I don't know. Maybe if he does have a good car here and he does perform well as he tends to, there will be some wheel to wheel fights and that will be hanging over him. But I don't envision anything actually happening to trigger this race ban. Put it that way.
no, I mean we talked about it last time. I don't think he'll change his out and out driving style. That's just not his way. But I do think he'll make just that little bit more of an effort to not get too involved in anything he doesn't need to, and just.
Yeah,
I think it's honestly, I think it's more like the radio comms than anything else. Like just keeping quiet and just getting on with it. I think probably helps, and that could well be that he was quieter in Canada, or it could also just be that nothing he said played into the narrative, so therefore they didn't use it. It doesn't matter which it is, but that like cooler attitude probably just helps a little bit. But yeah, I'd love to see him go wheel to wheel with some people though, because
yeah,
this is a track where he likes to do that. So I'd like to see him do it, but not for the sake of him getting a race ban and getting in trouble, but more for the fact that he does it well here. I want to see him race people
yeah.
here. So
And it's funny because you're potentially going to have him who can't afford an incident at the risk of penalty points, racing the 2 McLarens who can't afford an incident because they're in a world championship fight.
yeah,
So they're all going to be kind of going in a little bit like potentially holding back slightly. Yeah, it could be really interesting from that point of view.
yeah.
Oh, the seagulls have arrived.
The seagulls are here.
Another interesting thing this weekend. Technically, this is the last race Colapinto is definitely going to be doing. They said they were doing a 5-race swap for Colapinto, and this is his 5th race. I think Flavio has said he doesn't see any reason to mess with things just yet. But yeah, technically, Colapinto is not confirmed past this race. I imagine they will keep him around. I don't think he's done anything spectacular in these 5 races, but he's also kind of kept it clean for the most part.
Yeah, not done anything awful. Trying to think what Gasly's done in the meantime. He's had a couple of all right performances, hasn't he? Like although he has also out qualified Gasly, so
He has actually, yeah. He's
it's
been
not
much closer in qualifying.
yeah, it's not entirely um negative, I guess. I mean, no points finishes for Colapinto, and in that time, Gasly's had the one. So,
Yeah.
but I mean, generally, other than that point finish, that Gasly and Colapinto's positions have been not that dissimilar. Like, I'm just looking now. Gasly's got a 13th retirement, 8th, 15th, and Colapinto's got 16th, 13th, 15th, 13th. So
Yeah, he
they're
finished ahead
hot.
in Canada, didn't he?
You know, they're hovering around those positions with both cars. So I think that generally speaking, he's doing an all right enough job to continue. I mean, yes, albeit it's not that much better than what Doohan was doing, but it's I think he's enough that there's no excuse to change him. At least let's put it that way.
Yeah. And as a final point of interest, Lando's car in FP1 is going to be driven by Alex Dunn, who is the current F2 championship leader. And he'll become the first Irish F1 driver in 22 years.
Does that go back to Eddie Irvine?
Someone asked this in the Discord earlier, and everyone said Eddie Irvine, and then realised Eddie Irvine was actually he's Northern Irish, so he actually raced under the British flag.
Did he? Did he race under the British flag?
He did, yeah.
Huh.
Which, in my memory, that wasn't the case. But yeah,
Yeah.
I've gone to look back and
Mandela affected there.
yeah.
Who is it then?
I would never have in a million years guessed this. It was in 2003, and Ralph Furman did 14 races for Jordan, picked up a single point. That was. I like to think my F1 knowledge goes back, going back that distance is fairly good, but he had completely fallen out of my head. I barely remember him being in that car at all.
Yeah, I mean, I'd struggle to think of anyone who raced under the Irish flag generally, and for some reason, I always thought Irvine was one of those, but obviously not.
I did look earlier on at the Irish F1 drivers Wikipedia page, and it's a short list. 5 grand total of 5 Irish F1 drivers ever,
and one of those is Furman, I'm assuming.
Yeah, and the others are going way back as well.
Hence, probably not remembering them.
Yeah, but yeah, Alex Dunn, he seems pretty good driver. He's had a really good season F2 so far. Kept it fairly clean.
I'll tell you somebody who is Irish who's worth looking out for in future Formula One terms.
Oh yeah,
Fionn McLaughlin. If you're interested in watching up and coming talent currently racing in F4, and is very, very quick.
Is that in British F4?
That's British F4, correctly. Yeah. And Red Bull sponsored, so obviously there's teams already interested in Fionn, but yeah, having a very good season so far this season. Good number of podiums and only one win, I think, if I remember right, but consistently being on the podium in a competitive series like F4 and F3.
That's how you win F4 championships.
It's how you win the titles, yeah. So, but yeah, that's an Irish name for you to watch.
Nice. Right, should we make some predictions?
Oh yeah, we need to do that thing, don't we?
We do.
Okay, so I'll start by saying, if anyone at home wants to get involved with this, you can just head to backofthegrid.com. If you haven't played before, you just have to register on the site, and all the information is there on how to do this. If you have, use your old account and sign in, rack up those scores. If you do get 5 out of 5 correct, like a perfect race weekend, then you do win a prize, and all your points throughout the season go towards an overall leaderboard, which if you have been playing, you can see the current status of on the website as well once you're all signed up. Chris and I will do ours now, ahead of the race week, or at the start of the race week. So, always a daunting experience, but it's a sacrifice we make. Fastest in Q3. Have you had any thoughts about this going into this, Chris?
I think I'm going to go for a Verstappen. big Q3 performance.
Verstappen, big Q3.
Yeah.
Oh, this is where it becomes hard for me. I really don't know where I want to go, and that has not helped me at all.
You are welcome.
I'm going to go with a Piastri pole, but a Verstappen win.
Interesting.
So who do you think will win?
I'm going Verstappen pole, Norris win.
Norris win.
Yeah.
Some bounce back from previous. Interesting. What about your first DNF? Who do you think that may well be?
First DNF. I'm gonna go for. Let's go for someone like. Let's go for a Liam Lawson this week.
Okay. I'm literally just looking at the standings and I'm going someone in that bottom third. Oliver Behrman. Sorry, Oliver. That's just where I'm going. Number of finishes, Chris?
I feel like since they got rid of the suspension destroying curbs, it's been fairly high numbers of finishes here, I think, in recent years.
Yeah, it's not been too bad. Just trying to think, other than the collisions, I don't think we actually had any. In fact, actually, technically speaking, I mean, Norris was classified, but he didn't finish.
Yeah,
Max still finished the race.
Yeah.
So there was literally only the collision damage last year. Going back the year before, it was a sprint race that year, though, wasn't it? So that just throws a random mix in. Honestly, it was only Hulkenberg retired that year as well, across two races. So, yeah, the curb changes in recent years have definitely stopped being as much of a car killer as it used to be for the tyres and the suspension.
I'm going 19. I'm going big.
You're going big, 19.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to be slightly less optimistic and say 18. And then random driver, I've gone and closed the window where I know that information is, so I'm going to have to open it back up.
Good work.
Always on point. Ooh, Isaac Hadjar.
Ooh.
That's an interesting one.
That is a good one. Good old season he's having.
Yeah.
I'm thinking points.
Yeah.
I'm thinking eighth.
I don't think that's too bad of a shout. I mean, looking at his average finishing position for the year, that's probably about his average.
Yeah, it's kind of what I'm thinking.
He's got some that are a little bit way off the points, like a 16 thing for Canada and stuff, but generally is just inside the points or better. I'm going to have to mimic you on this one. I'm going to go 8th as well. I know we don't normally like to always be the same as each other, but I think on this occasion, I feel like that is a good number to be on. So I'm going to agree and say 8th. And that's ours. So if you want to join in, like I said before, head to backofthegrid.com. If you want to get involved with any of our fantasy leagues as well, we do the official F1 Fantasy League. We also do a GridRival Fantasy League for Formula One. And we also do a GridRival IndyCar League, which Chris is still somehow second place in, I believe.
I know. I think that says more about how bad I am at the F1 leagues that we do. The sport I know very little about, I'm guessing my way to second place.
Yeah, I mean, with the Predictions League, I feel like I have an excuse because we do it on a Monday evening, which is way ahead of a race weekend before you've seen anybody run on track or seen any updates or anything. So we have a hindrance there, but GridRival and Fantasy, we could change our team as late as anybody else and we still don't do that great. So yeah, that is what it is, but oh well.
Speaking of IndyCar, I can highly recommend watching the highlights of Sunday's IndyCar race. I can also highly recommend watching the highlights of the Nürburgring 24-hour, which was some very entertaining racing in that.
And having been at Alton Park, I can highly recommend watching the highlights of the touring cars.
There we go. And there's also IMSA to catch up on, but I've not actually seen that yet.
Crazy, isn't it? It's such a busy weekend of motorsport, and none of it was
I
Formula
know.
One. All good though.
Yeah. Not bad
Lots
at
of
all.
good racing this weekend.
And that about wraps us up, I think, for this week. So please do enjoy the racing this weekend. We'll be back next week to go over the Austrian Grand Prix and all of the many events. We'll also be around at some point to talk about the F1 movie, which comes out in a couple of days' time, I believe. So I think we're both going to go and see that at some point this week, and we'll probably do a bit of probably like a separate film review type episode. I think might be fun to do.
Back of a cinema. Wait, no,
yeah.
hang on, no, that's another thing entirely. No,
maybe not
that.
Yeah, so we'll let you know when we're doing that as well. Backofthegrid.com to enter the predictions league, and also find the links to the grid rivals that we've run as well, and F1 official fantasy league as well on there, which I've not looked at my team for yet, but that's going pretty poorly for me this season. If you want to join our wonderful Discord community, you can find out how to do that at patreon.com/backofthegrid. And I think that is it. So thank you as always for joining us, and we will speak to you next week. Bye, everyone.
Bye.